We're continuing our conversation with Ben Hansen right here on 94.7 Blair Radio, blairradio.com. And Senator, thank you again for coming in talking to us today.
Yep, no problem.
And so the previous segments, I was trying to take it easy on you. Now I'm going to go for the difficult question
Awesome.
for you. So what is the bill that you've seen so far coming into this year's session that you think would be a shame for it to not go through, but you know it's going to be tough?
Boy, that's another good one. You know, I would think a shame to not go through. Well, the tax package is one I was talking about before. Like that is one I think that is pretty crucial because as the government does well, the people need to do better, right? And so I'd hate to see us have all this revenue and we're making new programs and trying to help people in other ways, but we can't lower people's taxes, right? I think that's kind of systematically unfair. And I think that is not how government should run. But my personal one, since I'm a very pro-life candidate, is the heartbeat bill. Like that is a shame if that does not go through. We have the numbers for it, and the votes should be there, and it's going to be on the floor. And so that's one that I personally really want to see go through more than anything else.
Is there a filibuster issues that could come up with that one?
Every bill is going to get filibustered.
Everyone will?
Right now, when I was talking about how some people are trying to take up time to prevent other things from getting on the floor, they're filibustering like the simplest bills that should literally take 5 minutes when they're just trying to. It's like a simple update language bill, an appropriations bill where we're just trying to move some things around, really have no significance at all, really. They're filibustering. They're talking for like 4 or 5 hours on it.
Because the more that they can filibuster everything, it's going to push everything.
The more time they take, the less things we're going to get on the floor, or so they think. I mean, or the less bills, maybe the ones that they want we're going to get on the floor. So sometimes there are repercussions for taking up a lot of of time and kind of manipulating the session.
Yeah. Well, then maybe we need to introduce a bill that says that all bills will be heard no matter how long, so they'll continue to extend the session.
I will be there forever.
But that might encourage some to no longer filibuster.
Maybe. Only getting paid $1,000 a month. I don't know if that's going to work for the legislature. It's not going to work out too well for me.
But anyway, so that's, there you go. So.
Okay, well, like I said, I listen to every constituent, and so I'll be sure to write that one down and put it in my back pocket somewhere.
Yeah, just to kind of say, hey, we could always introduce this if you keep that going. So, but anyway, so the abortion bill, and that's a big deal and that's this past couple of years. It is it's just definitely a hot topic both directions, isn't it?
Yeah, they're like pretty much most of the bills we're going to hear, like they're heavy hitters, right? Yeah. And so we have the transgender youth one, right? That could potentially go on the floor. We're going to ban transgender surgeries for minors and puberty blockers for minors. That one get on the floor. There's a bill by Senator Merman who he introduced. I think that he might even be prioritizing where it's going to ban biological males from being in biological female sports and vice versa, and then also unable to use their locker rooms and bathrooms, right? Voter ID, like we have to talk about voter ID. That's not even a question because that got passed on the it's a constitutional amendment, so the voters voted for it on their ballot last year, and so now it's mandated that we now have to implement it as a legislature, in the state of Nebraska. So we have to talk about that. We can't even really leave until that's talked about. Yeah. And the budget. You mean what? So this is a budget year, and so that's why we're going a little bit. We're 30 days is to debate the budget. Yeah. We have to figure that out even, right? And so all of this
you have
stuff
to figure
is
out a 2-year budget.
Yeah. And so if not, we have to stay there, and we'll stay there past 90 days.
Well, there you go. That's how you introduce my other bill.
I know. So hopefully that will not happen.
Okay.
But which is probably why we're going to go late at night, I think, a lot of these nights. And so all that kind of stuff is, on top of the abortion and constitutional carry and the tax bill, all that's going to take a lot of time. Those are all take at least 8 hours in the first round, 4 hours in the second, and 2 hours in the third round, each one of them. So they're all going to take at least 14 hours, each one of them.
And so back to your phrase, these are a lot of heavy hitting bills going through.
Yeah. They're like not just they're socially and culturally very significant bills, right? And these aren't like, you don't have a whole lot of people middle of the road on some of this stuff a lot of times, right? They're like two boxers in the corners, like just punching each other in the face, and so that's the tribalism aspect of it. And so that's where a lot of the animosity comes out, I think, and anger and hurt feelings and And so that just makes the session so much longer and, difficult. And I'm not the greatest at dealing with like emotional people.
Right.
I'm more of a logical thing. I like to debate things logically.
Yeah.
Like, let's bring facts and figures. And so I'm going to try to debate and try to bring you to my side as opposed to just calling you names.
Yeah.
Right. And so that's typically not how I do it.
Yeah.
But that's what we're seeing a lot of senators do this year. So it's unfortunate.
And it's hard to argue when you don't have logic to argue with.
Yeah, like emotion always trumps logic, right?
Yeah.
I mean, you can sit there and give all the stats and the figures and the data and all this kind of stuff, but if someone says, "Well, you hate children if you do this," and then and so that's emotional response, right? It's like they don't care about some logic. It's just like their emotions, kind of cloud all that other kinds of judgment, and so that is a lot of what's going on. You're seeing it in D.C., right?
Mm-hmm.
You're seeing like people yelling at each other, and people, a lot of animosity and vitriol, and it's like I said, it's kind of happening in Nebraska here a little bit, and so this year, especially more than any year I've ever seen already, like a lot of that stuff going on.
And so, how do we correct that, or how do we get back to a conversation?
That's a good question, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I mean, maybe some of these things need to be hashed out.
Mm-hmm.
You mean, and this is just kind of the rough part of the road we have to go through before it's smooth sailing. I think it'd be nice, I think, if we had a more diverse group of people in the state legislature, like business owners and, maybe younger people, or, I don't know, like, because typically we have the same kind of people all the time. Maybe something like that, get the voters more involved in local school boards and, city councils. I think that's really how you, I don't know how you combat it, right? It's just, it's feelings, right? Like, how do you talk to somebody who has a lot of hurt feelings and are angry about something, logically? Is pretty difficult.
Yeah. Well, if people are out there and they want to keep a close eye on it, they want to follow along, there's several ways, and you guys are working on your Facebook pages and stuff like that, right?
Yeah, especially now we're in session. I try to do my best to update our Facebook page on kind of what's going on, what bills are passing. Emailing my office is always a good way if you have any questions, or calling us.
Mm-hmm.
All that kind of stuff. I try to update the people the best I can. We do our weekly columns for all the newspapers, so people can go check out the newspapers, and it's always in there about kind of what's going on for that week. So, and
then they can follow a calendar of when things are being submitted.
Yes, yeah, that's a big one. So you can always go on, I think it's Nebraska Legislature.gov, or just Google Nebraska Legislature. They have the calendar on there and what bills are coming up when. So if you want to get engaged, like if some of these stuff, even the bills I just talked about, you're like, oh man, the transgender one, I really want to talk about that, for or against it, whatever. That's, you want to know when that's coming up. You can actually watch it on NET, like all the stuff on the floor, or even in the committee hearings, all that stuff's televised.
Yeah.
And so if you want to skip your soap opera, I mean, watch this instead, because that's what's been like so
it's
far.
Been like
it's
this
a
year.
Soap opera, right? We've had different centers on Fox News and MSNBC already, and because of some of the stuff that's being said on the floor.
Can't script it, can you?
No. And so, it's right now, it's kind of a soap opera, so you can watch it on TV if you want.
All right. Well, again, thank you, Senator Ben Hansen, for coming in. And let's keep the updates going and make sure everybody is aware. And if you get information from constituents that have things that they want to hear about, we can be another resource to be able to get that out, because there's probably more than one that wants to hear about it.
Yes, there always is, especially lately.
Yeah. So, well, thank you again for taking time to speak with us today.
Yeah, thank you.